the way these companies were building the brands was mostly through the television. It was, it was marketing dominated and driven, and it was all about building content through TV advertising that will inspire people.
So, well, for one, I've been looking forward to having this conversation. I remember first being introduced to who you were when a friend of mine, who said to say hello, by the way, Eugenia Perrier from
Oh yeah.
Opera, he paid me like a really extreme compliment when he said, "Your heart for innovation and design reminds me of Mauro Porcini." And I said, "Who's Mauro Porcini?" And he's like, "Oh, he's Pepsi's chief design officer." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And at the time, we were in San Francisco doing an innovation workshop. And I had shown him this, which I know you wrote about in your book and you're a big fan of as well. So
Yes.
I was so excited. At the time, sort of, it was an interesting thing. So it's just funny how all the roads connect, isn't it?
Absolutely. Small world, small world.
Amazing. Well, first, again, been a big fan. Loved the book. It was fantastic. I've read every possible book on business, innovation, design, you name it. But I feel like there was something missing from my library. And the one thing that your book did, which I thought was really, really provocative, was you cover the thing that most of these books don't cover, which is the actual human side of things. So in your book, you talk a lot about dreams. I'd love to hear from you, Mauro, like what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the nice word. Let me just check the audio. Yeah, it's good.
You sound fantastic.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry. So, first of all, thanks for the nice words. The ones you see here are my dogs. They're always
I love it. Love
around. What inspired me? First of all, I always wanted to write a book. It was a passion since I was a kid. And even more than that, I wanted to be a writer. That was my dream as a child, either a writer or an artist, the two passions that I had. And so as a child, I would write and write and write. And I was painting, painting and painting. And then I became a designer. But I always had this idea that sooner or later, probably I was going to write a book. So I've been writing. As I said in the book, I've been taking notes along my life. And today I realize that this passion that I have for writing, for art in general, and then later on, another passion that I discovered for speaking on stage and in podcasting, in any kind of situation an opportunity I can find, is driven by this love that I have for sharing and communicating. And so this is probably the key reason why I wrote this book, because I accumulated a lot of learnings during my life through failures and successes, through things that went well and things that didn't. And I have this need, this instinct of sharing what I learned with the rest of the world. Probably also because I've been always fascinated by the density of wisdom and knowledge that you find in books written by people all over the history of humanity. When you write a book, you try to condense everything you have been learning years and years and years of your life. And when we read those books, we have access in few pages to things that happen over so long, in the life of people. And when you write a book, you try to really do the best that you can in sharing the story. So I think books in particular are so precious. It's a wonderful gift to humanity. And so I wanted to contribute somehow. It's almost like giving back for everything I received from the thousands of authors that wrote the books that I read during my life.
I love that. I'm a big fan of sort of manifesting and designing the future that we want. So I want to hear you say it, put it out in the universe. What is one of your dreams to happen from this book? So like one dream that would come from this book now being in the world very soon.
I realized that dream while I was writing the book, not before. Before writing the book, I knew what the book was going to be about. But while writing it and while starting to receive some of the feedback, I realized that one of the potential of the book that I didn't realize before is this idea of love embedded in everything we do in our lives. The subtitle, People in Love with People, is at the end, the synthesis of that idea. The second set of people is referring to this idea of human centricity, of growing businesses and driving innovation with the people we serve at the center of everything, not starting from a financial algorithm, or, well, I could get market share there, or I have an amazing technology that somehow I need to leverage because I want to make money out of it. No. Starting from this passion and this love that you have for creating value for people out there and for society and for our world. The first set of people in the sentence, people in love with people, instead is the people driving all of this.
Absolutely.
Is the innovators, the unicorns, the leaders, entrepreneurs of the world. And love somehow synthesized all the traits of these unicorns, the 24 characteristics of the unicorns. But in particular, it talks about the passion that you have for what you do, that love, that drives you to do everything you do, the love for others that you bring with you. This is not a one-woman show or a one-man show. This is a collective effort, it's a teamwork. In this world today, so competitive, so hyper-specialized, you need specialists in all the different dimensions of a business, design, technology, marketing, and so on and so forth, to work together. And so these unicorns, these leaders, need to take others with them, and that's love once again.
Absolutely. No, we're gonna talk a lot about unicorns, because I actually read the book twice. I read it first because I wanted to have this conversation when I was talking to your PR team and whatnot. But I went back as a designer myself, as an entrepreneur myself, and I reread it because I asked myself the question of, like, I've always wondered about this concept of unicorns. We use that term a lot in design and innovation. I want to sort of go back to some of your early days for just a moment, and we're going to talk about unicorns and dragons today, because there's that beautiful story from the funeral service in 2019 that just really moved me, and I want to hear it from your voice and through your eyes. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is going back to your early days. I know your thesis for your master's degree was on wearable technology. And I first would love to understand, absolutely. Again, we have a lot in common. It's a little freaky. Except I think you have better fashion sense than me. I read that you were like, one of the top best dressed people by GQ. But so the question I have for you is, what are your thoughts on the role that wearable technology will play on the future of business, and specifically for the future of PepsiCo, where you've been just transforming this organization with the teams you've been building?
I think that essentially technology in general, not just the wearable ones, it is still already today and more in the future surrounding us to make our lives easier, more convenient, and more enjoyable. And in the past, technology could be condensed in few objects that we were using. More and more, technology is becoming transparent, is in the cloud, is surrounding us in so many different ways. And then step by step, we start to wear the technology more and more as soon as the technology is ready for those kind of applications. In the end of the 90s, I was working on this topic, both for my thesis in the university and then immediately after when I joined Philips Design. And many of the ideas we're working on I think they would add so much value to the life of people, but the technology is not there yet. And the biggest problems are washing this stuff, is the battery time, even though there are many improvements in that dimension. And then is the miniaturization of some of these technologies.
Was what you call the sphere of business in your book. You talk a lot about desirability, feasibility, and both technical and economic. And you talk about that idea of timing, which I think the rhythm and timing, it wasn't ready then, right? So it's so interesting to revisit it now when that was so long ago for you, I would imagine.
Yeah. But again, as soon as the time will arrive, we will wear so many devices that will help us managing our life in a better way.
Absolutely.
And you asked me about PepsiCo, my vision for the future of food and beverage in general, and hoping that PepsiCo will really lead the way, and we're trying to start in that direction with a variety of different projects. The vision is a future where you wake up in the morning with these devices on you. It could be, the ring we're both wearing. It could be the watch we're both wearing, but it could be the patches we developed with Gatorade GX, for instance. Or I remember at the time of Philips, we were dreaming of tattoos that could actually play that kind of role. It could be anything you want, and there will be many choices in the future, but something will monitor you while you're sleeping. And the intelligence of the house, the Alexa of the situation, will in the morning will be like, Pete, good morning. I know you didn't sleep very well last night. I know your health history. I know your busy agenda today. And therefore, they will create a drink with the flavors that the Alexa knows that you love. You love, well, I can you hear Alexa?
Yes. Oh, I didn't hear it for you, but no, I was wondering if it was going to turn on.
Alexa is on, and she's talking to me. I don't know what she's saying. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
She listens.
She's always listening. But anyway, she will be like, okay, the drink is gonna have the flavors that she knows that you love, but the specific day there will be an extra boost of energy, caffeine, or electrolytes, or vitamin B, or magnesium, or turmeric, or depending on your profile and what you need in the specific moment.
No, I love
this
that.
is going to be the future, a future where we'll have help to manage our nutrition in the best possible way, both for our long-term health as well as for our day-to-day performance in life.
I love that. That's a really good transition. So you've had so many different things in your background. And one of the stories that resonates most with me, because I started an agency early in my career in consulting, and I have a background in designing and coding and motion graphics. I know for a short time you had WiseMad, your agency, and you sort of talk a lot in the book about learning to code and building websites and really forming yourself as a multidisciplinary designer or holistic designer, as you cover, which really resonated with me. I have to ask, now in the role that you're at as a chief design officer, do you ever miss running your own agency?
Well, not for a reason, because what they do in these companies is like running your own agency. It's literally, you need to build culture, capability, probably because I built design in 3M and then in PepsiCo from scratch. So literally you're there, the market, you have a double market. Is the market of the PepsiCo universe, and then you have the external market that you still need to serve. And so it was very similar, and we run things like if we are an agency, but in the meantime, we really want to integrate the culture of design within the company. We're a partner, we're a function like many others. But somehow at the end of the day, there is that kind of culture. So I don't miss it because I'm doing it. If I was instead in a more traditional kind of organization and not really having the latitude of freedom to own, the vision for design and build the capability, probably I would miss it. Yes, because at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur inside. So that could manifest, in an agency that by definition, you need to be entrepreneurial if you want to run an agency. It could be your own startup, or it could be building something completely new within the body of a big organization like PepsiCo.
I love that. So a theme that comes up in the book a lot, and it's one that is near and dear to my heart, is mythical creatures, specifically unicorns and dragons. You shared a very personal story in 2019 when you were at the funeral service for Alessandro Mendini, obviously one of the most greatest Italian designers. And instead of a photo being next to his coffin, it was a sketch of this mythical creature. And I'm going to read the quote because it was just so inspiring to me. And the quote said, next to the thing, "I am not an architect, I am a dragon. The head of a product designer, the hands of a craftsman, the chest of a manager, the stomach of a priest, the feet of an artist, the legs of a graphic designer, the tail of a poet, the body of an architect." And in that book, you say, Mauro, that meant something profound to you. I would love for you to share with me and the audience, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, somehow it connected directly with something I've been pitching for many, many years in this company that came out of a very concrete, tangible need. When I started to build design in 3M, it became clear pretty quickly the fact that I was officially playing in the world of industrial design. But if I really wanted to have an impact on the business of the company, growing the business, driving innovation, I needed to look at design holistically. People at the end of the day interact with these products and these brands, and they interact with the product itself, the packaging, the brand, the experience when you buy it, the experience when you use it, the digital world, all the different dimensions. They don't care about the fact that in these companies, eventually you have somebody working on one dimension and then a completely different team working on another. And while in the past, this was kind of okay, because at the end of the day, you will buy to a store, you go to a store, you will buy a product. There was a nice packaging, that's great, but then you will get the product, you use the product, and anything else. The way these companies were building the brands was mostly through the television. It was, it was marketing dominated and driven, and it was all about building content through TV advertising that will inspire people. Then you will go to the store and you will buy the thing that you were inspired by in television. Today, instead, these brands have a life. They live 24/7 through social media, and also in the physical world. What happened in the physical world as a life in the digital world if you do things that are interesting. So even a piece of packaging, something that happened at Walmart or Carrefour, something that happened in a restaurant or on the street of a city, eventually can become content in the world of social media. And so because of this, these companies need something they didn't need in the past. They need somebody that can art direct the life of these brands 24/7 across every touch point of the brand. Understand what is that consistent, meaningful story, both at global level, but then also how you localize the story, how the brand behave in a different way on the basis of the different situations and occasions. So long story short, I realized what Mendini said in such a poetical way, the fact that as design leaders in these companies, we need to have an holistic approach to design, all the different dimensions of design. We need to understand the business world. We need to be incredible storytellers and ambassadors. And somehow it's probably that dimension also the Mendini defined in his,
I love that.
dragon, the priest,
I love that.
The priest, the
No, we need so much more time than I know we have today. I only have you for 8 more minutes because of your busy schedule. I think hopefully in the follow-up, we can sometime talk about discovering, owning, and sharing, and that DOS sort of acronym, which I think is really beautiful and actionable. So design is something I'm very, very passionate about. And a lot of the work that I do with corporations, I've done some work for some of the Pepsi brands, but probably off of your radar. Many leaders, CEOs specifically, don't yet get the power of design. They don't understand the importance of this yet, like Pepsi and 3M did, right? So one of the things I want to hear from you on is, if you're talking to a CEO right now, why should CEOs and leaders invest in branding and brand experience? Ultimately, what is the ROI of design? Because I think a lot of organizations still yet, I know you're on the board of the Design Management Institute. One of my favorite stats that I tell my clients a lot is design-driven organizations outperform the S&P 500 by a few hundred%. But many people don't have the understanding of that magical gift that is design. So please talk to those leaders. What is the ROI of design, and why should they be investing in it if they're not already?
Well, first of all, they may not listen to me as a designer. One powerful tool that I usually share with, piece of research that I usually share with CEOs and business leaders is the McKinsey report.
Yeah, the design index. Yes.
Yeah, because when McKinsey say that design actually is delivering business value, then all of a sudden it's not the designers anymore saying, oh, we deliver business value. It's a third neutral party. So, but why? Because we live in a world that is radically different today than just 20 years ago. And so you CEO or business leader of 20 years ago, eventually you didn't really need design. It was always an interesting competitive advantage, but in some industries especially was not necessary. What is happening today instead is that essentially anybody out there can come up with an idea, get easy access to funding for that idea through platforms like Kickstarter.com or the proliferation of investment funds hunting for the next big idea. The cost of manufacturing that idea is going down, driven by new technologies and globalization. You can go straight to your end users through the e-commerce platform and the social media platform to sell them stuff and communicate your product and idea. And these were the areas where these companies were building their barriers to entry, made of scale of production, distribution, and manufacturing. So you see, 20 years ago, you had your huge barriers to entry. So even if your product was not perfect, if you found a dynamic balance between your product and one of your few competitors, then that will define the industry. It will be very different for anybody outside of the industry to come in and compete with you, especially for the startups. Today, instead, you have this proliferation of new entrants that are looking at the relation between people and your products and brands and are trying to figure out if there is any frustration, unmet need, any kind of opportunity, any dream that people may have in relation to your product category that you are not serving yet. And you could have a perfect product and you could have a perfect branding, but poor service. Or your product may be eventually not sustainable enough or not healthy enough. Or maybe you have everything perfect, but you're not really good at communicating this. You're not very good at being agile and react quickly every day to what's going on out there in the world and building the right ecosystem of communication. So long story short, CEOs of the world, you need to invest in creators within your organization that are able to understand society, the people you serve, what you call eventually consumers, and build solutions to that in a very agile way, daily, as part of culture, because this is the most powerful competitive advantage you may have in this hyper-competitive world we live in, where you cannot protect any form of mediocrity anymore through your barriers to entry. So essentially, by hiring designers, you are hiring creators that have the ability to translate insights into action, products, solutions.
I think you said something. It was the innate capacity to move the balance of dream and reality, vision and execution. I have a poster up here in wood. You can't see it because it's off camera. It says, ideas are nothing without execution. So I think you and I share a lot in common. I know I may have you for just a few more minutes, and I want to make sure we talk about the unicorn's entrepreneurial gifts, right? So you were dropped into Pepsi as a team of one in the beginning. And at the time, much younger than you are today, though you're still pretty young. And for new design leaders, lots of companies, lots of CEOs are waking up to what you just said, which is great. And it's giving design a seat at the table and to use these entrepreneurial gifts. What are some just quick tips in closing you'd share for A, how can organizations develop and transform that DNA? And B, just give us like a high level on why should someone check out the book to learn more about these unicorn entrepreneurial gifts?
Well, I'll start from that and I'll go backwards to the first part of the question. Essentially, often organizations think that is enough to embrace the tools and methodologies and ways of working and processes of a new culture, of a new way of doing things. In this case, is the word of design. I want to do design. I'm going to embrace the tools and methodologies of design thinking. And then they realize that that's not enough. That
it's not the DNA. It's not in the DNA.
Yeah, a tool, a methodology is like a brush. Put a brush in the hands of Picasso. Put a brush in the hands of
the tax advisor.
Your tax advisor. You will get a very different kind of results. And the problem is that often these companies buy the brush, they invest a lot of money in the brush, and then when the brush doesn't deliver the painting of Picasso, they blame the brush. They're like, oh my God, the brush didn't do what it was supposed to do. So
out with the baby with the bathwater, right?
Exactly. So design thinking doesn't work because the tool didn't work. No, you need the right people. And so what are the characteristics? In the book, I talk about 24 different characteristics. Some are more obvious. For instance, the mix between the ability to dream and think big, that is not that obvious anyway, because many people lose that ability when they grow up and when society and companies try to normalize them and contain them and they stop dreaming. But, preserving that ability, but then combining it, and you said it a second ago, with the ability to make things happen, to execute, to operationalize your dream. This is difficult and is one of the key of success. Proactiveness, going to these companies and asking why and trying to understand what are the root causes of everything, not accepting your job description as is or the brief for the next project as is, but always thinking, how can I really add value to this organization? Not thinking about your 1 year cycle, your bonus, your performance review, but thinking about creating value long-term for society and for your company, no matter what eventually your own organization is asking you to do. Give them that. You need to give them that, unless it's unethical or is not good for the company, then you absolutely push back. But if they ask you to do just a fragment of what you can do, give them that. Don't focus on something else, because else you lose your job, else you lose credibility. You lose the ability and the potential of doing what you are really supposed to do. And then a variety of other characteristics: kindness, optimism, curiosity, a series of characteristics that are by far less obvious. Nobody talks about these characteristics when we talk about innovation and business. Actually, the opposite, eventually. They tell you not to be too kind, to be tough on people, to be people one against the other, to drive in a Darwinian kind of way, the best solutions out of that conflict and that collision. And instead, in the book, I share a series of stories and concrete examples of how we should have people that are kind, that are optimistic, that are curious, and many other characteristics to drive not just the quality of what we do, but productivity, efficiency, effectiveness in everything we do.
I know we're at time today, so where can folks go to learn more about you and to purchase the book, which I know is coming out any day now?
To learn more about me is LinkedIn and Instagram, my accounts, Mauro Porcini in both. And the book, you can find it in all the traditional retailers. An easy one, obviously, is Amazon.
Okay. I've loved the time we spent together today, and I look forward to sharing more about this with my audience.
Thank you so much for the time.
Cheers.
Ciao.